This first review is, well, no surprise because it's a phone, so we had to bring in our phone guru, Myriam Joire. Myriam, thank you for coming back.
Hello, I'm back.
Now, of course, we like it when you bring in the flagships. We love the beautiful cameras, we love the beautiful screens, but every once in a while, you get yourself a budget phone.
And you know, it's a good thing because it keeps me honest.
It keeps you honest.
Because there's a lot of people out there who don't care or
Right.
don't have the budget to get a flagship phone, especially full price, right? So they compromise and they subsidize and they get a contract and they regret it because they spent $2,500 over 2 years, right? Typically.
Well, a non-$2,500 phone is this. This is the LG Tribute 2.
It's actually the LG Leon. It's a generic
It's
name
rebranded.
for it.
Okay, got it.
And then for Boost Mobile, it's called the LG Tribute 2. So let me show you this phone. And it's a $99 phone. Let's get that out of the way first, right? A Benjamin, basically. But it's actually not bad. So let's walk through it. First of all, let's flip it over and you'll probably notice something interesting. Does this not look like
it does
an LG G4?
Okay,
it
so
does, right?
obviously they wanted to use some of the same design elements.
So they have that influence, and honestly, I love the back buttons. You know, like if you give me a shot of my face real quick, Brian, you know, you can hold the phone like this and feel the volume up and down.
Right.
And the other thing is you have the double tap to unlock. So that's something that LG's done for quite a while on these phones. And so basically, think G4 scaled way down in performance, price, and specs. And that's actually one of the things I love. Remember I reviewed that Galaxy Grand Prime recently?
Right, which was a hot steaming
Well,
phone.
so the thing about that was, I'm like, you know, design-wise, it was so bland generic. This thing has some character to it. You know, it has that nice curvature that the G4 also has, even though it doesn't actually physically have a curved screen like the G4 does. But it retains the design language of its parent phone, and it feels really nice in the hand. The materials don't feel cheap to me for a $99 phone.
They're trying to prove that you don't need to have the budget phone look to have a budget phone. Right. It doesn't have to look like every other phone on the market.
And then if you look at it again on close-up here, I'll give you a bit of a view. Like we've dimmed the screen a bit here for the show, but it actually is an IPS panel, and it's a pretty damn good IPS panel. If I crank up the brightness,
an IPS panel on a $99 phone.
Yes, I mean look at it. You can see a bit of
really good.
it's not bad at all for a budget phone. There's one drawback though. There's no light sensor on this phone. So whatever you set your brightness at is pretty much what you're stuck with, and that could be a problem. Depending on...
I'm actually okay with that. The light sensor is one of the very first things I turn off.
Oftentimes they're not calibrated properly. So that's not a big deal to me. In terms of specs, so it's a 4.5-inch wide VGA display. So it's got, 852 by 480 pixels. Basically what flagships used to be like around the Galaxy S2 timeframe. So there's plenty enough pixels on this display. For its size, I think it's perfectly fine. And the other thing is, honestly, it's a compact phone. It feels great in the hand.
It does look a little thick,
one-handed. It is a little, but it's thinner than phones used to be back in the day. But it's thicker than today's flagships. I think it's like something like 9 millimeters at its thickest. It's not bad. You're right though, a little thick. But because it's a smaller phone, it looks thicker than a larger phone with the same thickness. And then the other thing is, the display is decent, and they didn't skimp on the processor either. It's a Snapdragon 410 quad-core, 1 gig of RAM. So this thing is speedy, especially considering it only has to drive.
So wait, it's got a good screen, it's got a fast processor. Where did they save the money?
We'll get to that. So, great display, great processor, 1 gig of RAM. Now, they did save a bit of money on the built-in storage, only 8 gigabytes.
Well.
Micro SD though.
Okay, so it's expandable. All right.
The battery pops out in the back. This is a completely removable back panel. You have underneath here a micro SIM and a micro SD card slot. And here's the other thing that's great. Look at this battery, 1900 milliamp hours. Driving such a small screen and such a power efficient processor means pretty much 2 days of battery life.
Wow.
Right? So you're gonna say like, tell me what is wrong with this phone.
Okay, I'm not seeing the budget part here yet. It's snappy, it's got a beautiful screen, it's got a replaceable battery that lasts forever.
Battery.
8
So
gigs
this is
not
where
great,
it all falls apart. So I was in love with this. Great design, reminds me of the G4, great specs, great screen, and then it all comes crashing down when you look at the camera. Or the cameras. So here's what happened. Before I show you, let me actually start the camera, and I'll show you some of the photos I took, because they're actually not bad. So you're gonna say, what? Where are you going with this? So,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
let
that's
me
okay,
let me crank up the brightness a bit. So.
None of my phones currently have really
so
nice
here,
cameras.
here, you know, are some shots. As you can see, this is an HDR shot. Look, this is a low light shot, and it fared pretty well. You look at that.
Okay, yeah,
right?
I'm not seeing too many
Okay,
pixels.
now let's keep going. There's a few, like there's a nice, beautiful shot of the rain in San Francisco, right? And here's a beautiful shot. So you're gonna say, yeah, okay, what are you talking about, Myriam? And I'm gonna show you in a second what I'm talking about. The tragic thing about this camera is that although it's 5 megapixels, which is kind of the low side, it does HD video, it has an LED flash even, it has no autofocus. And it's not advertised in the specs. So this came as a surprise. I thought at first I had a bum phone.
Wait, what?
I had to check.
That's not an expensive feature.
I called LG US and said, guys, like, is this supposed to be a fixed focus camera? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And it gets worse. There is worse. The front-facing camera is, are you ready for this? VGA.
Oh, well, you know, sometimes I feel like I need to bust out my
You
640.
want to take a selfie with this thing? Watch the quality of the camera. It is, show us, it is absolutely abysmal. It's like crap, total crap. So this is definitely not the phone to buy.
I didn't realize camera sensors were so expensive.
And you know, honestly, I don't think it is. And there's a version of the Leon in Europe that has an 8 megapixel autofocus camera, and I think we got the short end of the stick because this phone is also available on Timo for the same price with the same crappy camera.
I'm thinking they're just looking for something to differentiate this between the more expensive phones. They don't want you to buy a $99 phone that's performing like one of their flagships.
So for me, the takeaway here is this is an awesome phone if you don't want to take photos.
So it's an awesome phone if you want a phone. Okay, all right, that's not bad. Give me the pros and the cons. Break this down for me. What do I like? What do I not like?
Great design, great screen for the money, great processor and general performance, and then that in the price obviously $99. But then the drawback is that the camera is like, honestly, it's the biggest drawback. The camera and the cameras, plural, no autofocus, bad cameras. And here's the thing, it's actually interesting because you saw the photos I took, they're actually pretty decent if you do anything that's further away. But it's just, you can't use barcode scanning for your Walmart prescriptions, for example, right? Like it just falls apart. So the camera is a huge issue, and honestly, the price again, because it was a pro because of all these great things you're getting. But as soon as you look at it and you go, the camera is completely unusable, at that point you're like, okay, it should be $59 or $69 or $79, but not $99. So then you start getting angry because you're like, no, the price is not right anymore.
Okay, so you're leaking into a verdict here. Is this a buy, try, or a don't buy?
Unfortunately, I think it's a don't buy. And I hate to say this because if it was $79, it'd be a buy. It's just at that point where you can't forgive such a major omission when everything else is so good. If they had put a Snapdragon 210 in there, which is a lower spec processor, and maybe kept the same camera, was just autofocus, and kept that crappy VGA camera, I'd say buy. Because then you still have a well-rounded package. Here you have this complete unbalance on one side.
Yeah, it's a deliberate crippling that
it's
you just
totally
don't
the kind
want.
of thing where they have a part spin for 5 cents more with autofocus, and they just chose to like, good enough.
Oh, why is it all budget phones are like that? So it's a don't buy for the LG Tribute 2, almost there.
And I really wanted to like this phone all the way. I was just like so close to liking this phone.
Or maybe like Chumley, you can buy this phone and then spend $200 on a nice camera.
So maybe we should caveat it and say, if you don't care about the camera, it's an absolute buy.
Absolute buy. There you go. We want to thank Myriam, of course. You come on. You are our personal guru for all things phone. You're going to find you here often on Before You Buy and also on All About Android. But where else can they find your work if they want to go out into the world and find the Tank Girl?
The Tank Girl is my handle. It's without the vowels, TNKGRL. So if you want to find me online, find my Twitter first. That's mostly where I tweet day to day. G+, Facebook, and of course my blog, tankgirl.com, TNKGRL.com, where mostly I podcast these days and cover phones that I don't get to review on Before You Buy, which is few these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much. It is always a pleasure. It's always an honor to have you on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing the tribute. Even though it wasn't a buy, maybe
LG, I love you, but this was like just autofocus and it would have been a buy.
It would have been a buy.